Mahlako Mahapa, director at Mon Flair.
Yes, I'm Mahlako Mahapa, director at Mon Flair Sports, a sports and lifestyle brand.
Yes. No, thank you for giving us your time today. We appreciate it. Let's just get into it. What does the company do? What do you guys specialize in?
I mean, we're, as I just mentioned now, we are a sporting brand, so a sporting and lifestyle brand. And the likes of where we are pegging ourselves against is something like your Nikes, your Adidas. If you think more now of a local brand that's sort of is trying to get to that global stage as those two brands that I just mentioned.
So you are technical sponsors for Baroka FC in the DStv Premiership, also TS Sporting in the Glad Africa Championship. If I'm correct, Free State Stars as well?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
And also we're also the technical sponsor for Chippa United as well in the DStv Premiership as well. So that's a new that we've just recently gotten.
So two
and
Premiership
some other ones that we're still finalizing within the Glad Africa Championships that I can't yet mention until the pen to paper that we've signed on the dotted line.
So the growth of the company, how old is the company for you guys to be now involved with two Premiership clubs and two officially Glad Africa Championship sides? How old are you? And you're growing at a fast rate.
I mean, we've been around for just over 4 years, but it's comes from a lot of experience, the experience that we have within the industry. The brand might be quite brand new, but the experience within the clothing space, we have experience of over 14 years within the industry. So I think there was a lot of homework that was done before we got to where we are, and hence why we have existing relationships within the sports industry. So maybe that's why we're then able to sort of network a bit quicker, and the growth of the brand is, much quicker than what if we were coming off from completely different industry. But because we come from this sports industry, I think that's why it's been, I wouldn't say easier, but there's been slightly easier than what it would have been had we have been complete strangers into the industry.
And competing with the other brands that you mentioned before, how tough has it been, for you guys to be able to cement your place like this and in a market that's also very competitive?
It's very tough. I mean, we are the new kid on the block, so you have to prove yourself. And when you walk into any club, any PSL club, they look at you and say, who are you? Because all the brands that we're competing with are global brands, realistically speaking. So they come with marketing and advertising mileage from the European leagues. So before they even knock, if their brand globally speaks for them. So as opposed to us, we have to walk in, introduce yourself, and sort of get people to buy into the concept of what we are trying to do as an African brand. I'm not going to just sort of limit it to South African, because we're trying to go into the rest of Africa as well. So it's difficult, I'm not going to lie. We are then pegged against the global brands, rightfully so, because that is where we're trying to get to, So the fact that there's more clubs that are believing that we're capable, it means we're doing something right. And I think it's just a matter of time with the whole Africanism, people wanting, let's put Africa forward. We are just as capable as any of the other brands, and we just need to believe in our own people. And I think I'm realizing that with the more clubs that we're getting, where people are saying, let's give these guys a chance. And, it's tough, but I like them. There's a mind shift in terms of people about believing about Africans, what we can do. And I think that's worked for us to a certain extent. And so hopefully from here on, we'll just be growing bigger and bigger. Has
it been also an important factor for you to not go for very well-known clubs. I mean, if you say Baroka FC 4 years ago, they were just only entering into the Premiership, being promoted into the Premiership, like brands that you could grow with.
That's been also quite important for us to do, I think mainly on two fronts. Firstly, with the smaller brands, they are willing to take a bit more chance because they don't have history of dealing with particular brands as per se, where the bigger clubs have sort of been married to these big brands for a long time. So for you to come in and try change that space, it's going to take a long time, and rightfully so. We need to prove ourselves within the industry for them to now throw away a lifetime marriage that they've had with these other brands. So that's been the one way of looking at it in terms of sort of looking at the smaller clubs that we can grow with, you know. And so they are willing to obviously give us more of a chance because they don't have history with the other brands. And I think as well, sort of aligning ourselves with the smaller brands that, in terms of the smaller clubs that are just getting into the PSL space and not necessarily with so much history there, then we can grow with them. You know what I mean? So sort of forming together, we're forming our identity as well as them within the space. So it works for both, for both parties.
Does competition, the teams doing well in their respective leagues also, is it an important thing for you? I mean, you look at Baroka FC, for example, when they won the Telkom knockout, they were wearing your brand, which was amazing. You know, so is it important that the teams also do well for you? Is it something that is also in discussion, or we're still growing a brand? Whatever happens with the teams on the field, it's a different story for you guys.
Everybody wants to be aligned with a winning brand. So it is important that, you know, the club that we're associating with is also succeeding. So I can't say that it's not an important factor to have a club that is successful. It's very important. And I think in terms of marketing as well, if you're then going to be trying to go into the rest of Africa and you're saying that I am the brand that is a technical sponsor to this club that has achieved ABC, you know, you've got a bit more mileage in terms of marketing, and that more recognizable to, you know, to say, for argument's sake, if you were to win the DStv Premiership and you say, I am that sponsor, South African born brand that kit this club. Do you know what I mean? It makes your marketing that much easier. So yeah, it's definitely important for us to be aligning with clubs that are growing.
So the season is about to start sometime this month. I've seen the kit, Baroka FC looks beautiful. I've also seen the kit, TS Sporting looks beautiful. What goes into saying, okay, this season we're going with a round neck, or we are going with this beautiful V and African touch? What goes into that?
I think, you know, when we first started out, we were a bit reserved in terms of coming out fully with design because we were not too sure how we're going to be received.
Yeah.
And going into the season, when I sat around with the designer, the statement was, we're going to go big, we're going to go bold, we're going to go differentiated, and we're not going to hold anything back. And we're a South African brand. So whatever design that we are coming up with needs to speak to who we are and who the client is. And that was actually what we focused on, to say, we're not trying to imitate any other brand.
Yeah.
We need to try to be seen to be those guys that, whether we're going to be seen as those African guys that do the African sort of feel of the kit, that's who we're going to be, but we're not going to be trying to look like what the rest of the European stuff is doing. And that was what went into planning in terms of design for this season going forward, to say big, bold, differentiated, and at the heart of it all, African.
A lot
African.
of technical kids are criticized for the fact that it can't be worn anywhere else unless you're going to a football match at a stadium. With the Baroka kit for this season, I've seen some little bit of banter on social media with some of the fans saying, like, we are going to be wearing this when we go to the Heritage Day stuff or even traditional wedding stuff. Conversation wise, or also is that something that, yes, this is the intention, we want you to be able to wear it anywhere else?
Absolutely, absolutely. And hence why it was so important for us to say it is our heritage. We were going with the idea of heritage, South African, and you cannot go heritage if you're not going to be able to wear it anywhere else for your linyalong or whatever the case might be. I saw that, and it was exactly what we're aiming for, to say we are inspired by our heritage. And I actually can't wait for you guys to see what we've done with, like, for instance, the chipper kit when it comes out. I think I'm foreseeing more of that, you know, but it's getting people talking. It's getting people talking, you know. And again, when you come up with a new idea, not everybody's going to receive you well, you know, because they are so accustomed to what a soccer kit is meant to look like.
Mm-hmm.
But who determines what it's supposed to look like? Who does? So it's up to us. We are here to say that this is what we define as an African soccer kit, if you want to call it. But, you know, people are so used to what the bigger brands are saying to us, this is what you're supposed to look like, you know, and hence why it's going to take a bit of time for them to think, okay, who are these guys? What is it that they're trying to do, you know? So yeah, let's get them talking.
And in terms of manufacturing, is that manufactured locally? Are you going with local production, local designers, and all of that?
So all our kits this season are manufactured locally, and the designers are here locally. So, I mean, it's important for us to try keep as much as possible locally, but I will be honest in saying, like, there's limitations in terms of fabrications and all sorts of stuff for locally. So we are trying to compete globally. So we also have to keep that in mind, to say, as much as we'd love to keep everything locally, we're going to limit ourselves in terms of how we compete on the market if we then produce everything locally. But yes, I can say that for this season, all our kids and all the clubs that we're working with, everything was done locally.
Is it only football that you guys now, in terms of going with professional sites, that you have looked at, or there's other sporting codes as well that you are looking at perhaps sponsoring as well?
I mean, we've recently also partnered with a running club, Fat Cats Running Club. So going into, we're going to be launching their new kits, their new tracksuits and all of that, and then by end of this month. So that's also something that we're looking at. So we're not limiting ourselves to say we're not a soccer brand. Let me categorically put it out there. We're not a soccer brand. We are a professional sports brand. So whether an opportunity comes up where we get into, whether it's going to be cricket, whether it's going to be, I mean, we've tried to look for work within other sporting industry, like codes, like your cricket and all of that. But, you know, we're not limiting ourselves to soccer. And hence I'm saying, I think also look out for what we're going to be doing now for Fat Cats. That's also going to be quite interesting stuff that we've come up with.
So also just looking at the space that you are in, entrepreneurship and in sport, how are the playing fields gender-wise? Like, are we seeing more women? Is it still a struggle as with other industries as well, you know, where we see women cementing their place and being big players as well?
I think within my space, you don't find a lot of women, you know, you don't at all. And it also, whether it's on the athlete side, and I mean, I also always get questioned why don't we get involved in women's sports and that type of stuff, you know? There's so many things that work against us, in terms of as women, just generally in the corporate world, if you want to call it, but it starts somewhere. So I'm here today. So another child, girl child out there can be looking out and saying, hey, there's that lady Mahlako that started that brand Mon Flair. You know, I'm also then teaching the girl child that the sports industry is not only limited to the athletes or administrators or whatever. There's business side of it within the sports industry. So currently I am aware that they are virtually no women that I'm aware of within what I do. But you know, I'm hoping that maybe somebody out there is sitting and seeing what I'm doing and will be inspired by it for future generations.
Yeah, and you know, also looking at issues like leadership. You're also a leader. You're a decision maker as well. So that should also be assisting. You know, in terms of not just inspirational that you're just gonna come and be some small time player. You can go there and play with the big boys.
That's very true and very. I mean, it's unfortunately that within the industry, we are always looked at as whether you're going to be the assistant to this person, you know. So somebody's always looking for who's your boss.
Yeah.
Like, who are you representing and that type of thing. It's the stereotype is there and it's up to us to change it, you know. But I think, yeah, we will get there. But unfortunately, it is the stereotype that exists in any, I can't even limit it to say in the sports industry, but within across all industries. So yeah, but I'm here and I have been asked a few times in terms of, you know, so your boss, can I get a hold of your boss? But it faze me anymore. It doesn't faze me anymore because I know who I am.
Just lastly, as we wrap up, what is your vision for Mon Flair in terms of how far you've come? Say, not to look too far and say 5 years. Let's just say in the next 2 years, you know, what is the vision looking at where you've come, where you are right now, and what is the bigger vision?
I think at the beginning of this, I mentioned that we are an African brand. So within the next 2 to 3 years, I would like us to be occupying spaces within the rest of Africa, which we already sort of started knocking on doors of in certain leagues across Africa. So that's the aim, to say within the next 2 to 3 years, we're not going to just be a brand that's limited to South Africa. That's the big drive for next year, to say we want to be in some of the bigger leagues throughout the rest of Africa before we conquer the global world. So that's where we are.
Mahlako Mahapa, director at Mon Flair Sports, thank you so much for your time. And we wish you all of the best in everything that you're going to be doing. And we wish positive outcomes for those other deals that you've been talking about in the Africa Championship. And yeah, we wish to see more of you, to speak to more of you, entrepreneurship and sports. You know, we wish you all the best and we thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.